What's up everyone, Dan here today with my review for Arrow Season 6 Episode 11 entitled We Fall. Now this was of course a follow-up to the episode that we had last week, which was the mid-season premiere, where Cayden James started to slowly take control of the city with his newly formed team called the Criminal Cabal. And of course at the end of last episode we finally had new Team Arrow of Curtis, Dinah and Renee find a new setup in the old Helix HQ and slowly start to take their steps towards actually becoming a new team. We get to see them work together on their own separate missions away from original Team Arrow. You got the plotline of Cayden James starting to hack everything in the city that is connected to the internet. You had William put in danger. But even with all those plot lines, this episode didn't really have much of a story to it. In fact, I would probably argue that this episode was kind of an entertaining filler episode, which I'm very mixed on to say the least. So let's get into the positives of this episode. I'm going to start off with Vigilante. I was very surprised with what they did with Vigilante in this episode because they actually made me like him as a character, which I never thought I would ever say. But yeah, they got me to like Vigilante. I thought he was very good this episode. I thought the actor who played him did a much better job in this episode. Because we find out that he's actually double-crossing Cayden James, or at least that's what it seems like right now. He tells new Team Arrow that he is actually working undercover to take down Cayden James because he's one of his targets. And he gives some information to new Team Arrow about where Cayden James is striking next, which obviously turns out to be correct. So they start to form a little bit of a partnership there. So I thought that was really cool. I just like the fact that they're giving Vigilante / Vincent Sobel a story other than just him getting back with Dinah. Giving him this other story of this undercover mission that he's on to take down Cayden James. I feel like that's very interesting. Although I do have a theory about where that story will go. And if it is correct, it probably won't last much longer. But I'm going to save that for my Vigilante video that I'll probably be doing in a couple of days' time. The second thing I've got written down here is seeing the two teams work separately but together at the same time. I thought that was a really cool dynamic, seeing the new Team Arrow slowly decide, getting into their ways of how they're going to go about things, with the fact that they're not with the original Team Arrow. I thought that was very interesting. Obviously they played it for comedy with, the whole Curtis suit up thing, and they're having the whole debate about, oh no, you can't do that, and things like that. I thought that was really cool. The fact that they are sharing information together but are actually going out on the field completely separately was kind of cool. But obviously you had the end fight scene where they were all together. That was pretty cool to see them working together, but yet still not exactly trusting each other, to say the least. So I thought that was very interesting. If it continues like that for the next few episodes, I have no qualms with them being apart, because that in itself is very interesting to me. Record me when I say this, but Felicity had arguably one of the best scenes in the episode. She had a scene with William, because William, of course, is caught up in these attacks by Cayden James when his school bus is caught under a tunnel that's under attack. Oliver saves him as the Green Arrow, and obviously he finds out that Oliver has been lying to him for weeks about him not being the Green Arrow when he actually was. So that was obviously kind of interesting to see that. And the scene that Felicity has with William, explaining why Oliver lies to people and why he has to be the Green Arrow. And they have the side-by-side montage where it's like her speaking to William whilst Oliver, Team Arrow and new Team Arrow is out on the field taking down, Cayden James's henchmen. I thought that was a really, really well done scene. Definitely one of my favourite scenes in the episode. And I've got to give credit to Emily Bett Rickards, because I know sometimes I do give her slack only because I don't feel like she's very good with heavily emotional scenes. But in this scene right here, I really enjoyed her. And this is the kind of Felicity moments I want to see more of on Arrow. Not these crying segments or segments where she's giving out these really awful dialogue speeches. No, this is the Felicity I want to see. And I really liked that. And I thought this was a great scene. Probably, like I said, one of my favourite scenes of the episode. The action scenes in this episode were pretty cool as well, I have to admit. I thought a lot of them were very good, shot very well. Like I said, the scene where it coincides with Felicity's speech to William was very good. The whole tunnel scene was cool, even though it did feel a little bit shoehorned in, which I'll get into in the negatives. But overall, the action was very cool, and there was quite a few standout moments. My favourite one for me was Dinah stopping the train with her canary cry. That was really cool. I know some people will call BS on that, but I personally really enjoyed it. And I'll just throw this one in here just for a little bit of a laugh. We lost a very special someone in this episode. No, not Captain Pike, because his death was so poorly done. I'm, of course, referring to the god himself, Boots. R.I.P. Boots.
Traitor! I'm taking you to hell with...
What you say? Oh, that you only meant well, well, 'cause you did what you say.
I want to get that Justice for Boots in the comment section down below, because he dies in this episode. Vigilante shot him, and very emotional scene. Alright, now that is it for the positives. Let's get into the negatives I had with this episode, because even though I've spoken quite positively about it so far, there were quite a few issues that I did have with the episode. The first one being very little plot progression. There was a lot of setup in this episode, but very little in terms of payoff. Now, it does look like episode 12 may pay off some of these story arcs and character motives that were set up in this episode. If it doesn't, I would be very disappointed, but it's just a shame when, in a few months' time, when I look back on this episode, I'm really not going to remember much from it because of just how little actually happened in this episode, or how much stuff actually had some sort of resolution in this episode, other than really the whole Oliver lying to William storyline. That was about it. Nothing really concluded or came full circle in this episode. Cayden James is still boring. I really don't enjoy him as a villain. He's just this really dull character, and I have not got a problem with Michael Emerson. He is a good actor. If you've seen him on Lost, he's phenomenal on that. Here, he is boring, and the whole motive about his dead son, you know, it's just uninteresting. And they try to play off this thing that, oh, somebody faked information and sent it to him that, you know, Oliver killed his son. I really couldn't care at this point, because the whole aspect of somebody close to the main villain dying and they hold Green Arrow responsible for it, or they want to destroy the city because of it. We've had it so many times. I mean, Malcolm Merlyn in Season 1 attacks Starling City at the time because of his dead wife. Slade Wilson / Deathstroke in Season 2 attacks Starling City because Shadow dies and he blames Oliver. Season 5, Prometheus attacks Oliver because he blames him for the death of his father. And now we have Season 6 where Cayden James attacks Oliver because he blames him for the death of his son. It's getting so boring at the moment, and Cayden James is just doing nothing to separate himself. He has threat intellectually, maybe, yes, but in terms of physical threat, when he's on screen, I am not intimidated by him whatsoever, and that's just really disappointing, because with an actor like Michael Emerson, you have so much potential, and yet the Arrow writers just squander all that potential, and it's just so disappointing. The tunnel scene, like I mentioned earlier, felt very shoehorned in. It felt very weirdly placed. It felt like something you would have at the end of an episode, not halfway through. So I thought that was a bit strange. Pike's death was very poorly handled. Captain Pike is a character who has been in the show since Season 1, and to see him go out in such a lame way was so disappointing. I really thought Quentin would have a better reaction to that, because this is a guy he has known for years. And the fact we didn't really see much emotion from him, you know, when he found out that he died, I was very disappointed by it, and just the whole death in itself was very disappointing in my opinion. He definitely deserved better, and it was just poor writing in my opinion. We got no Ricardo Diaz / the Dragon or Black Siren in this episode, which I was extremely disappointed by, because, you know, I really like these two characters, and last episode we got a bit more with Ricardo Diaz, and then just to not have him in this episode felt very strange in my opinion. Now, there is a theory going around that he's the person who messed with the info about Cayden James' son, and he purposely sent that to Cayden James so that he would go against Green Arrow. I've got no idea if that's true or not, but I would have liked to have seen in this episode and Black Siren, because I really like them. They're easily my two favourite characters in the Criminal Cabal, so I was disappointed not to see them. And the last one is a bit of a plot niggle that I had with the episode, and that is the whole Vigilante hacking Curtis's T-Spheres. That made no sense. How can everyone just hack Curtis's T-Spheres? It makes no sense in my opinion. Everybody's hacking him now. Cayden James can hack his T-Spheres. Now Vigilante can. He can send Morse code via his visor. It did feel a little bit stupid in my opinion, and the fact that they didn't explain it, it's typical Arrow. They won't explain technobabble like that. They will just expect the audience to go along with it, and I was a little bit disappointed with that, but oh well, this is Arrow at the end of the day. So overall, I thought this was a very mixed episode, but at the end of the day, I would have to say that it is above average. It's still definitely a filler episode, but I will admit it was entertaining. Even though I do have quite a few criticisms, overall the episode did keep me entertained. So for that reason, I'm going to give this episode of Arrow a 6 out of 10. And it's, like I said, it's not that I hated this episode. I just felt like, considering how much of an improvement last episode was, in terms of what we got in the first half of the season, this just felt very dull and very little progression in my opinion. So hopefully if episode 12 can pay off some of these plot lines, maybe I will look upon this episode in a bit more positive mindset. But as of right now, 6 out of 10 is definitely the right score in my opinion. So that is it for my review of Arrow Season 6, Episode 11. Of course, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about this episode. Did you enjoy it? Did you agree with me that it was filler? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will hope to see you again next time.